Hey everyone, welcome to TechVision Live. This is CDW's live social broadcast program for IT pros that highlights CDW's experts, solutions, and partners. We are coming to you live from CDW's main headquarters in Lincolnshire, Illinois. So where are you today? Let us know in the comments and say hi. We'll be watching you. We've got an exciting show coming up for you today on a topic we're hearing a lot of our customers talk about and grapple with, and that is collaboration solutions, specifically related to mobile technology. So joining us today will be a few of CDW's best and brightest experts in the collaboration and mobility space. We're going to be talking to Preston Harris, Beth Bischoff, and Chris Coughlin. And since this is a live show, you get a chance to participate. Share with us in the comments now. What is it that you want to hear about? Ask any questions. We are going to have a Q&A section later on, and we'll get those questions answered for you later in the show. So be sure to update them early. It's so great to see so many of you tuning in. Get ready. We're going to have a great show today. TechVision Live starts now. All right, so where are you tuning in from today? Be sure to leave us some comments here. We're excited to interact with you today. So we're excited today to talk about how work environments are changing. So before we dive into our topic, let's dig into this a little bit more. So what's undeniable today is that businesses are seeing some big shifts when it comes to how employees are using technology at work. First and foremost, let's take a look at workers themselves. The workforce is shifting from millennials, and the post-millennial generation are now dominating. And this collective group is actually going to make up 75% of the workforce by 2025. And what do they want? Well, they want technology at work. A whopping majority, say 81%, says that state-of-the-art technology is the most important factor when considering an employer. So this is even more important than perks or other workplace amenities. And businesses are definitely taking notice. Today's productive organizations are employing a world of devices and apps, providing these tools for employees and following suit with BOYD flexibility and policies. In fact, in a recent IDG study sponsored by CDW, it found that 56% of organizations have increased their workspace solution investments. So the workers are demanding updates, companies are investing. How does that leave IT pros? How are IT pros keeping up with all of this? Well, a survey says that there are still many areas where organizations are struggling, both in finding the right mix of solutions and migrating their workforce to new solutions and managing all these new technologies. So what do you think? How many workspace solutions are you interacting with these days? Well, we're going to give you a chance to weigh in. So up on the screen next, you're going to see a statistic. And the real statistic is either higher or lower. So what we'd like you to do is take your best guess of whether the number, again, of workspace solutions is higher or lower. Answer in the comments and stick around to find out the real number in just a bit. All right, fun to see all your answers. Welcome back. Before I introduce you to our first guest, we want to think a little bit more about how technology is revolutionizing work. Where there once was just a simple conference room, a telephone, or maybe even a fax machine, maybe your fax machine is still around, today coworkers have a ton of tools at their fingertips. And taking the collaborative process from a local now to a global initiative. So what's enabling that kind of collaboration? Well, honestly, a big element is our phone. We have more powerful mobile devices than ever, improved screen sizes and higher resolutions, better network connectivity, we hope, and the ability to execute more workflows seamlessly across environments are resulting in dramatic improvements to efficiency and productivity. Workers expect the same kind of connectivity at work that they have in their personal lives, and they're constantly switching devices throughout the day. Organizations that understand and blend that personal and work into an effective mobile strategy are going to outpace others. They need to embrace a robust BYOD philosophy and see incredible results. So how do you build on that IT foundation to support all those changing expectations with collaboration through mobility? Well, that's the topic for our first guest. I'd like to introduce you to Preston Harris, Mobility Solution Architect here at CDW, and he's going to help us answer that question plus many more around this topic. So Preston, first of all, thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we hope that you're enjoying your summer so far.
I am. It's been a great summer, very busy.
Very busy?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's kind of overcast and cloudy here in Chicago, and hearing from some other friends around the country, they're saying that it hasn't been really a warm summer yet. It's been a little cold for them.
Sure.
So, anyhow, all right, we're going to start the discussion focused on the changing trends impacting mobility and collaboration needs in the workplace. So, from your perspective, how has tech evolution driven a more mobile workforce, and what does that mean for today's organizations?
Sure. Well, mobility is really upon us today, right? And when we think about mobility, sometimes we think about laptops, sometimes we think about smartphones, but really what we should be thinking about is any pane of glass. Whether we own it or the companies we work for own it, we're always trying to reach out to others to collaborate and to produce things that benefit our organizations.
Awesome. So there are now, we heard about the millennial workforce and how, you know, workplace expectations are shifting.
Yeah.
And definitely, I mean, obviously, people are demanding more and more mobile solutions. So with those changing expectations, how do our customers or people you talk to choose where to invest and how to manage all of these solutions?
Sure, yeah. Well, you know, help desk used to be 8 by 5, they're now 24 by 7.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Organizations really are expecting their employees to be on demand. That's the reality. So organizations are thinking about how people work, where they work, and when they work in a different way than they ever have in the past. And so all the tool sets and workflows that are needed to orchestrate all that type of activity are changing to on-demand, real-time connectivity for coworkers out there in the workforce.
And I imagine, like, keeping up the infrastructure to support all of that. What are people, you know, implementing these days to support?
Yeah, it's a great question. When you think about what's happening in the marketplace, the difference between 7 and 10 was years, right? Now Microsoft provides you know, updates twice a year, major updates, and refinements every month. Apple and Google do something similar. So mobility is moving at a breakneck speed from a software, hardware, and tool set perspective. So organizations are really under the crunch to try to keep up with all the updates for all the tools they use to manage their mobile environment. So we're seeing a migration to the cloud for a lot of organizations in terms of the control plane, and then investments in strategic solutions that they haven't in the past, things like mobile performance management, to ensure their connectivities are manageable and can be diagnosed even when folks are on the road or at home.
Great. And I know nobody wants Wi-Fi problems. It is the worst when you can't get a good connection, isn't it?
Talking about frustrating,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, okay, what about people that maybe are young in their roadmap for deploying all these mobility solutions in an organization? What advice would you have for them about what to focus on? Where would you start? What to prioritize?
Yeah, I would say get organized, establish a clear mobile framework and vision and corresponding policies to get started. Where a lot of organizations are finding success are aligning their mobile strategy with their business strategy, right? Those two get married at the beginning of the year, and that tells you what you need from an equipment, connectivity, application, management, security, and experience perspective, and you create a great mobile framework for success. So things are well aimed.
So what about on the other side of the spectrum? Because I think another trend that we're seeing is that idea of everything as a service.
Right.
So, you know, mobility as a service, device as a service. What can you tell us kind of on like that bleeding edge of all this collaboration? Well,
I can tell you for sure there's not enough folks in IT to deal with all these endpoints that are around, right? Between the endpoints the company owns and the end user, the devices they own, and the advent and popularity of things like wearables, digital assistants, smartphones, tablets, laptops. There's a lot to manage there. So consuming mobility as a service is certainly becoming more popular, so organizations can repurpose their internal resources to focus on digital transformation. That deep link between mobility and IT and business initiatives, so they can stay competitive in the marketplace and become disruptors, not the disrupted.
Oh, wow, that's good. Well, I imagine, you know, all of those devices and, you know, when you talk about IoT, you know, security must be a huge concern on locking this down. Can you, I know, you know, what would you say from a security perspective?
Yes.
How to deal with all this?
I would say take it seriously when it comes to mobile devices, because the threats are increasing and the creativity of those who create the threats is increasing. So historically there's been this thought with mobile devices, because they are hardened operating systems and sandbox, that security isn't a necessary element. But today we say, hey, look, make sure you have security at the operating system, right? Application, transport levels, and that, you know, you're really looking at it holistically and doing all you can to secure information. We've seen enough threats recently to know that there are several vectors.
Yeah, and I'm sure that we're going to see a lot more as time goes on. So awesome. Okay, well, if you've been listening so far, you might have some questions for Preston yourself. And we are going to be coming back a little bit later with Preston and also with Chris Coughlin to answer all of your questions. So be sure to ask them in the comments right now. So you can learn more about mobility and collaboration at cdw.com/collaboration. And one of the things that you'll find on that page is you can sign up for a collaboration workshop, as well as the best solutions and services that we support in today's modern workforce. So Preston, we appreciate your time so far. So stay put, because we'll see you later in our Q&A section. So right now, what we'd like to do is talk about a great demo of Microsoft Teams. So we have Beth Bischoff. Sorry, I forgot the name. Beth Bischoff is going to be talking about Microsoft Teams. So enjoy. Molly, what do you have for us today?
Hi everyone, I'm here with Beth Bischoff, Senior Solution Architect in Collaboration for CDW. Today we're going to be talking about Microsoft Teams. Hi Beth, thank you for joining.
Hi Molly, thank you for having me.
So can we start out with a brief overview of the state of collaboration adoption tools that you've seen in some of your customers?
Sure, so what we're seeing today is there's a little bit of conflict in terms of what people expect for collaboration and communication. First you have the new workforce coming out of college, and they've used a lot of new, really great collaboration tools, and that's kind of what they expect as they go into the workforce. You also have people outside of the office who are using some really fun collaborative tool sets, and they also expect those things inside of the office. But then you get into the office and you see people who are very entrenched in email, and they like that way of doing things. They don't want a lot of extra tools and new tools and that kind of thing. So, you know, you have a little bit of resistance sometimes to some of the new applications. So one of the really cool things that CDW does is offers professional services to address some of those planning, design, and even governance needs that our customers have.
Right. Now let's take a look at Microsoft Teams. Can you tell us a little bit about how it supports the digital workspace and collaboration?
Yeah, so Teams is really great for the end user in that it really overlays the rest of the applications that they're using inside of their communication and collaboration environment day to day. So for example, As a user scheduling meetings, they're used to using Outlook. But what they can do is they can use the Teams app, and they can actually start to use that to schedule their meetings. So it's really neat because it shows them what's on their calendar already. It lets them decide, do they want to choose a different time for a meeting. They can then also invite people as they're working. And one of my really favorite features about using Teams for scheduling is it shows you right away when that additional user is free. And if they're busy, it gives you additional times that the other users are free. So that scheduling assistant is built right in. There's no other tab that you have to go to like you do in Outlook.
That's a super cool feature. And I want to talk about security and controls a little bit because we know that's super important when it comes to collaboration.
Sure.
So what are some of the controls that are available through Microsoft Teams?
So there's some really great things in terms of what the user can do just inside of Teams. So just, I guess, to give you a little bit of background, as you're working in a team, you're typically focusing on an initiative or on a department and trying to decide, how to move forward, how to divide up into specific topics, which are called channels, for example. But as you build those teams, you actually have a way of managing that team. First, deciding who should be a member. Do you want to make the team public or private so people can find it and decide whether or not they want to join? If it's private, they can't find it. You can decide if you need to add additional channels to further divide up your topics and just give a little bit more focus to the specific team or workspace that you're creating. But then there's also settings available per team. So if you want to add a team picture, for example, if you want to decide whether or not guests are allowed in this team, so you can actually invite external users to participate, and even down to whether this team is conducive to adding fun stuff like emojis and Giphies, for example, are available per team.
So I also want to quickly talk about some of the updates that have been made to Microsoft Teams. Do you mind going over some of those?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, and I wanted to just real quick show you over in the Microsoft site. Microsoft has actually created an entire roadmap for when all of the new Skype for Business features, actually not new, but one of the Skype for Business features will be moved over to Teams. That transition is actually supposed to be complete by the end of 2018, but almost daily we're seeing new features being added. So this meetings roadmap, calling roadmap, and other roadmaps, this is available for reference for any customer. And you'll be able to see specifically when new features are supposed to be added. But as we go back into Teams, you can see the dial pad right inside Teams, things like consultative transfer, the ability to add guests. So there's a lot of new features that are being added to Teams all the time. There's the command line, which is relatively new, where you can type a / and you can see all of the commands, including this neat little Who bot, where you can find out about users and how they fall within the organization. So there's some really great features that are constantly being added and updated as we move along using Teams.
Yeah, thank you for taking us through those. And finally, I just wanted to ask you, what are some key recommendations that you think companies should be aware of when evaluating a tool like this? Can you share any tips with us?
Absolutely. So one of the things we found in talking with customers, especially IT, is that they tend to be a little bit resistant to using a new tool that tends to put so much control in the end user's hands. So one of the things I wanted to make sure that I pointed out today was the fact that you have a lot of administrative controls when it comes to using Teams. So this is our Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And one of the things you'll see is you can manage Teams right from within that. As a matter of fact, there's a brand new Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business Admin Center. I think this is actually new as of this week, where you can set things like messaging policies and organization-wide settings. Additionally, you have the Office 365 Security and Compliance Center. And this is really great for some of the specific compliance policies that your organization needs to abide by. Things like retention policies, for example. So the ability to create Teams policies and decide specifically how long you need to keep conversations or when you need to purge those conversations. But then you can see right away those are available within your Teams channel messages and chats. and you can even choose specific areas in which you apply those retention policies. Similarly, you can also use Ediscovery, so there's an Ediscovery portal within the Security and Compliance Center, as well as data loss prevention to protect your sensitive information and keep it from getting into the wrong hands.
Seth, thank you so much for all that great information and for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you again, Molly.
For more information on how your organization can get involved in collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams, visit www.biztechmagazine.com/mobility. Now let's get to some poll results and then we'll jump into the Q&A section of our show.
Hey everyone, we're back. So let me ask, were you surprised by the true number in our poll? Well, if you were surprised, after hearing from our guests in our next segment, I hope that it will make a lot more sense. So there are now more devices connecting to networks than ever before. Organizations looking to extend mobile capabilities must also account for implementing advanced updates and security measures all the time. So once devices and security are in place, organizations face the additional challenge of adoption because, as we all know, just because a mobile workforce is empowered to use applications, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will. So users need to engage with new applications to fully realize the benefits of any mobile strategy. We have Preston back with us, and he is joined by CDW's Senior Mobility Inside Solution Architect, Chris Coughlin. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Shelley. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Okay. So the most important question that I think people really want to know is, are you an iOS person or an Android user?
I am iOS.
You're an iOS?
I've tried Android. I like the customization capability of Android, but iOS works better for me and my family.
Yeah.
So.
What about you, Preston? What are you?
I lean towards iOS.
Lean.
Yeah.
All right, so you've given up your Blackberries
Yes.
at this point.
Yes.
Okay, no more Blackberries. Okay, so we are getting some great questions. You guys keep asking them. I can't wait to dig into these. So to get us started, we're going to ask this one. So what are the latest trends in BYOD, and where do organizations have the biggest concerns?
So the latest trends in BYOD and organizational concerns. So years ago, it was, we don't want those devices in our environment. It was, uncharted waters. It was scary. Now it's shifted. It's much more, sure, you can bring them in, and that's because of a couple different factors. One is security. One is financial. Organizations don't want to necessarily pay for the devices that users possibly want. So what they're doing is saying, you can bring them in, but we're going to put some limits or some fencing around that security that connects you to the corporation. So that's like corporate data, which is email, contacts, calendar, corporate access to applications that are specifically inside the organization, things like that.
And, okay, so security. There was a question, let's see, I saw in here from Dane C. So, wait. Sorry, Taylor. Taylor C. Has a question about what security measures often get overlooked when making decisions about mobility solutions.
Sure, I'll start. So
Okay.
one of the things that we're seeing across many segments, so everything from government to education to enterprises and small business, is that mobility solutions are taken for granted. And so that organizations sometimes won't even have a mobility policy, which Preston alluded to earlier, in place. And a mobility policy is, like he said, is like the rules of the road. Here's where you have to stay in bounds, here's where you can go out of bounds. And so they take that for granted, or it gets lost in the everyday shuffle of IT chaos. So that is one of the big concerns. You've got to have that in place so that your users know what they can and can't do, and the organization can know when they there are repercussions around violating those policies.
Okay, so security starts with policy.
Yes.
As a part of it. So, Preston, a question for you. How have those BYOD policies evolved over time? Because probably the ones that were in place maybe 3-5 years ago are probably vastly different from where they are now.
Yeah, BYOD is, you're taking a private device and providing organizational utility to it. So more recently, the policies have focused more towards application management than device management. Meaning that if you can manage and secure and containerize the application, and the operating systems now provide a lot of resource to do that, you can get away with just managing applications. Now, from a security perspective, we think you should take every measure, including turning on hardware features on those devices, but there has been a little bit more flexibility recently in the type of policies you can execute for mobile devices.
And what about those gaps? I mean, what in terms of security right now, what are maybe frequent gaps that you see in people's security implementation?
Well, I would say that some folks say enough is enough, and if you talk to a CISO, they say there's never enough, right?
Yeah.
But somehow mobility is put on an island. So in order to completely secure a mobile environment, you have to make sure the operating system is protected, the applications are protected, the content is protected, the connection is protected, and you're using artificial intelligence to watch the whole shop, right? And so we see a lot of organizations who have leaned into mobility but are using yesterday's definition for security, which is just, hey, if it's not jailbroken or rooted, and I've made some measures to containerize my applications, I'm okay. Well, there has to be more done than that to be truly secured. Well, as much as you can. Security is never foolproof.
Right. All right, so here's a question. We'll get to Dane C's question. He asks, what are some of the most valuable steps a company can take to improve and implement mobility solutions? And I would add in, the complexity of how many devices are on a network. I mean, how do you go about managing all of that?
I'll start. So I would say one of the best things to do is reach out to someone like myself or Preston at CDW and start with just a 30-minute consultation. It's free. You get to talk to us about some of the latest trends, not only MDM and security, but also some of the things that are happening on the back end that a lot of people aren't aware of, like mobile malware. So mobile malware is where a user is installing an app that actually could get access to corporate data, and neither the organization or the user knows that it's a nefarious app, and that can cause a lot of issues.
Wow. Preston, anything to add there?
Yeah, the processor that's in an iPhone is more powerful than the processors that are in a lot of PCs.
Wow.
Yeah. So organizations really who are getting to success are starting first with corporate initiatives and then deciding how to apply technology, which has an input into what type of equipment, connectivity, and applications you need. And that forms the basis for a good, strong mobile policy and vision. We think you really need, from today's perspective, we're not talking about email anymore, to really think about what you want to do with mobility. And that's part of the conversation we have over the long term with our customers.
Yeah, and before we mentioned the workshop, the collaboration workshop that you could sign up for on cdw.com/collaboration. Is that what you would talk about in that workshop?
Yeah, we actually have a combined workshop now, which includes mobility, productivity, and collaboration, called the Digital Workspace Workshop. And we talk about the technology, we talk to the lines of business to understand what the needs are and what the enabling technology, so we can provide consultation on future success, raising the game a bit for organizations.
Awesome. So you guys sign up for that because we want to make you smarter and want to help you, so sign up for that workshop. Okay, so I like this question. This one is coming from Chris B. And they ask, where do you see the biggest challenges to mobility coming in the future? So basically the future of all of this, what's coming down the road, would you say?
I would say customization. So we as consumers expect the same experience, especially if you're a millennial, that you have on a mobile device that you're going to have at work or any place else in your life. And so what you're also going to see is a move more away from the device and towards the app. There was just a Gartner study done that by 2022, 70% of all software interactions, so PC, mobile device, tablet, will actually start on a mobile device first. So mobile devices are becoming more and more part of our lives. And so that's why we need to look at, all the different ways that we can make that experience rich for the person who's using it for their personal life, but also in business.
Yeah, I would agree. Experience is king, right? As it relates to the applications, but also as it relates to the mobile experience overall with the end user. One of the more popular categories that's becoming really important this year is digital experience management. And that means device monitoring and understanding what is happening with the device, the applications, and the connections real time, right? So that you don't wake up one morning and you're wondering why your Outlook won't work. Right, or you're waiting there, it's spinning. So there's a lot of effort today to really optimize mobile experiences, including the application.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So I think also, I think we touched on it a little bit before, the idea of Internet of Things. So obviously, mobile devices are part of Internet of Things. How do you see that impacting, especially I think from an infrastructure standpoint? So you have all these devices collecting data. How is that impacting, infrastructure to access all that data?
So IoT impacting infrastructure, I think there's a couple ways to look at it. So let's start with the foundation, is that IoT is becoming everywhere. I read a study recently that in the next 5 years, $6 trillion will be spent on IoT worldwide.
Holy smokes.
So that's everything from your digital thermometer to your video doorbell to your bus monitoring to your route monitoring. UPS trucks take all right turns if they can versus left turns because it saves them so much money every year, and that's based on route mapping. So you're seeing that and that impact. Well, you've got to have the infrastructure there to be able to handle that data coming across and being connected to the right people at the right time.
Awesome.
Yeah, the infrastructure piece is challenging alone when it's inside your four walls, right? But a lot of IoT devices will actually be out in your customer's environment if you're a business. So connecting Internet of Things that aren't on your private network can be a challenge, and we think that's going to be a big piece of the solve for IoT devices. So there's a lot of effort in the industry to address that through micro VPNs that reside on small IoT devices and advanced transport methods for optimizing that signal and make sure the information gets back for aggregation. You see a lot of customers don't want someone else's IoT devices on their network. So that's a big area to solve right now from an Internet of Things perspective. And like we mentioned before, that's being worked out, that transport piece, and then from a manageability perspective, the unified endpoint managements we use for laptops, Windows, iOS, Android, are also becoming the platforms for centralized management of IoT devices.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's see. This is a fun one. What cool things can we expect from today's collaboration tools, short and long term? And that one's from Cody H.
Yeah, intelligence, context, right?
Yeah.
So we've been able to send messages and send chats and emails and do video conference and things of that nature. But what's becoming popular is collaboration tools that are location aware. And by that, I mean they know when you walk in the room with your equipment that you want to engage and collaborate. So in an average 30-minute meeting, as much as 10 minutes is wasted with getting connected, right?
That is so true.
You've been there, right? So the new tools are focused on reducing that amount of time and automatically prompting end users based off of proximity to connect and collaborate.
Okay, give us an example.
Cisco has a great technology where if you walk in with your iPhone and you've got one of their great boards, it knows you're there and says, hey, move that meeting onto the big screen. Yeah, so really cool stuff. It's really about saving time and getting down to business. And collaboration tools are really moving in that direction.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. I hope someday we get to walk into a room and just say, Alexa, start my meeting. And then everybody's on the phone and everything's working. All right.
We're getting there.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, here's another one from Taylor C. Just how much more at risk from malware are mobile devices compared to classic computers?
I would say they're probably more at risk, and the reason they're more at risk is because mobile devices are everywhere. One of the examples I talk to a lot of customers about is, so you've secured your organizational data with an MDM. Let's pretend that's wrapping on a present. So it's nice, it's in the wrapping paper. Somebody downloads an app, and they want access to your contacts, and you're like, sure, because I'm going to scan some business cards, and it's like, but that becomes a two-way street. And the problem with that two-way street is you don't know where the data is going. So it's like somebody taking that wrapped present and sticking an X-Acto knife in the back, and you have data leakage. And then where does that go? Because then you don't control it. So we actually have partners that address that specific need, and it's becoming the Wild West of security right now, where you really need to watch that area beyond the traditional MDM.
Wow. Cool. Anything to add?
Sure, yeah. Think about it, mobile devices are always connected, right? So they're always at risk. And we used to carry two phones, one for business, one for personal use. We carry one phone now. You can't get folks to carry two phones anymore, unless they work for IT.
Yeah.
Right?
Sorry, IT.
So that tells you that the personal existence and the professional existence have to coexist. And there's threats coming from both of those vectors. So mobile devices are under siege from a malware perspective.
Okay. So good security solution will help you prevent malware, and yes.
Yeah.
That's a simple answer, right? That's so complicated. All right, so we have time for one more, and this one has to do with cost savings. So from your mobile device management, what kind of cost savings can organizations see as they're managing all of these mobile solutions, and then also just the software solutions?
I'd say initially you can get a rein in on who's using, who has access to your corporate data. One step that a lot of organizations will take beyond that with that MDM software is telecommunication management. And what it does is it allows for you to manage the amount of data that someone's using, and maybe set limits or warnings so that they don't turn their work device into a Netflix device and start eating into more and more of the data, which costs the organization more. So that's one way that you can do it.
Yep. Yeah, I need to do that for my kids too.
Yes.
Yeah, live in the data. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then think about this. A lot of folks are confused about what Windows 10 is. And what it really is it's a hybrid operating system. It's part desktop, part mobile. So from a tool set perspective and personnel perspective, what we're seeing inside of organizations is a movement towards unified endpoint management. Instead of buying a tool set over here to manage PCs, and another tool set to manage Macs, and another tool set to manage mobile, we're seeing a consolidation. We'll use a common platform to manage it all, and then we'll align the internal resources from a human perspective to really lean into a single platform that provides efficiency from a cost and operational perspective.
Awesome. Wow. Well, I don't know about you, but I could sit here and ask you questions all day long, but I know everyone probably needs to get back to work. So you guys, thank you so much for spending time today and answering all of our questions. If we didn't get to your question, don't worry, we'll be able to share some answers in the comments. So, don't worry, we'll get back to you. So, to wrap things up, we wanted to leave you with some good questions that you can ask as you're thinking about building or expanding your digital workspace. So these are some common questions that we ask our customers. So here we go. Number one, how are your employees connecting outside of the office? Number two, what kind of applications are they using? What type of mobile security do you have in place? Do you expect a change in a year? What's going to change in a year? And finally, do you have a mobility strategy and a vision? So everything that Preston and Chris have discussed today and more, great information about collaboration and mobility can be found in a great new resource called CDW's Modern Workforce Report. So you'll see the link in that in the comments. You'll also can access it by visiting cdw.com/modernworkforce. All right, so thank you again so much to our guests, to everyone that joined today for our latest episode of TechVision Live. We'd love to stay connected with you beyond today, so be sure to follow CDW on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, even Spiceworks. You can hear the latest in IT trends, expert insights, and more. And next up, we have another episode, July 25th will be our next one, so be sure to mark your calendars now. And until we meet again, you guys, today we've made you smarter. And for now, keep on teching. We'll see you soon.